And we're live.
Hey, hey.
Hi,
Hey,
everybody.
we have Jen and Joe from the 222 podcast. Or do you prefer, is it 222 or 222 or
It's
two?
222 Paranormal Podcast.
Awesome. It's an honor to have you all on tonight. Me and Joe have been talking for a few months now. So it's
Yeah,
definitely awesome to finally have you on.
Well, I
yeah.
appreciate you having us on.
And I
Looking forward to it.
so just for the viewers and for the record, this is where you can reach Joe and Jen. Is it Joe and Jen or Jen and Joe? Just one.
Either way.
Either way. Yeah. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
he can go first because he's my older brother and the bratty little sisters.
Wow. So, I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. I started listening to it, and I've seen. I mean, there's so many episodes to pick
A
from.
lot, for sure.
Um, and I mean, how long have y'all been doing this?
So, Joe and I started 5 years
Yeah.
ago on July the 4th. We just had this idea. I was into ghost hunting and I was really um, interested in the paranormal, and Joe was really getting into podcasts. That's kind of when the podcasts were really starting to surge. And he's like, "Well, why don't we do a podcast
Yeah.
about you like ghost hunting? I like podcasting." So we just kind of like, all right, let's throw our hats in the ring, and we tried it out, and here we are in our sixth season.
Sixth season. Yeah.
Started our sixth season. We have about
A lot.
270 something episodes out right now, and never missed a week except for when Joe had a surgery.
Yeah, but luckily we had some
We had
shows
one
in the can.
show in the can.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's amazing. That long every week. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
doing them once a week for the past 5 years, basically.
Yep.
I'm guessing,
Mhm.
right?
And
That's dedication.
we haven't copied a show yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
I just tell you how
So,
many different topics there are in the paranormal. They're just never ending.
Mhm.
You guys should keep another one in reserve for when you go on vacation or something.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well, that's like I said, we were lucky because I know your listeners don't know, but my listeners, we've been talking about it a lot, but I ended up having emergency surgery on my neck. I had like a stroke symptoms. So luckily, while I was in the hospital, we didn't have to worry about recording because we had it in the can. So
that's good.
that's
But
a
you
tip for you future podcasters out
Right.
there.
I always have a spare show in case of emergency.
for the junior podcasters over here, like
That's a
Hey, so-
free tip.
great. So Jen, so what you're telling me, you started off with you love ghost hunting before the whole podcasting stuff.
Yeah, and my fascination started when I was really young. My dad really loved like UFOs. He was watching In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. We would go to the library and get books about the Loch Ness Monster, ghosts, and I always had this fascination for um, the other realm, like strange and unusual things, treasure hunting, monsters, and legends and lore. And as I grew older, I really didn't start ghost hunting until around 2008, 2009, taking it seriously. And, ever since then, it's, I always tell people it's kind of like riding a roller coaster. It's really, really scary when you're going up that hill, but once you do it, you're like, yes, I want to do it again.
Wow.
Ghost hunting is just like that. It's really scary until you do it, and you're like, yes, I want to do it again. Get back in line.
So the ghost hunting thing you started, and I mean, it was you and a few friends, or
Actually, it was just myself. The first real ghost, I would say ghost hunt that I went on. I went by myself. So they were having this event at Mansfield Prison in or Ohio Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, and I got to go and ghost hunt with some famous ghost hunters. They have the show
Yeah, with
and a
the
museum,
haunted hair.
the haunted
Yeah.
hair. I don't know if I should say his name, but it was really, really interesting experience. I never,
It rhymes with Rack Baggins.
yeah, something like
Huh.
that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And, it was just a real eye opening experience that, going into a haunted location, not knowing anybody, not knowing much about ghost hunting, and then not really knowing what to expect when you're in one of the most famously haunted locations.
wow. Okay, so it was an actual like a famous location that is like a
Yeah.
hot spot, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
know, at a hot spot.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Joe, while she's out beginning this, are you already kicking off looking into podcasting
Yeah, I
or?
was. I didn't get seriously into the ghost hunting aspect of it. I was always into like space, UFOs, and stuff like that. Little bit Bigfoot, but mainly UFO stuff. Until I had an after-death experience with my best friend Jackie, which is pretty long story, but basically the long short of it is she passed away in my hand, and I've got a lot of communications with her afterwards, which made me think of what's on the other side, and that got me into the ghosty side of it. Then I started doing ghost hunting with Jen, and one day we were just like, let's do a podcast about this because we both talk about it and we both enjoy it. So I researched a little bit, and here we are.
Awesome. And Jen, that prison it was a prison you said, right?
Yep.
Was there anything that you recall that was just that made you that day say, okay, it is haunted?
Yeah, it's one of the best pieces of evidence that I've ever had. I've had two full body apparitions that I saw, and the first one was at Mansfield. I was, if everybody knows, there's like cells stacked on top of each other, so there's 5 layers of cells, and as I was coming down at the end, they kind of have like stairs that go in kind of like a Z formation. So you're going down a flight, you're coming down another flight. And as I'm coming down the flight and turning the corner, I went to bump into somebody. You know how you go, and somebody, like you come around the corner and somebody's standing there. And there was a guy standing there, he was about 6 foot tall. He was in a milky white shadow, and he looked right at me and he just disappeared. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just saw a ghost.
Wow.
I just saw a full body apparition. And, of course, I didn't have my phone on, didn't have a camera running. And, that was like, wow. Like, I was very skeptical until that happened, because I was like, a lot of people they don't believe it until it actually happens to them, until you have that personal experience.
And would you think that place is so haunted that anybody can walk in there and?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's the prison that they filmed the Shawshank Redemption in. And there's been other movies filmed there, and some of the actors that have gone in there, like Morgan Freeman, had experiences of seeing and experiencing paranormal activity while they were filming. And we've been in there for conventions, just setting up at 9 o'clock in the morning and having activity happen already.
Wow.
It's it's unlike any other place.
It's not just a nighttime thing.
No, you can go in the daytime. You can have all kinds of experience. I have my hair
Have you been
pulled.
there, Joe?
Yeah, several times.
Have you
I've never actually did a ghost hunt there, but we've done conventions there. We do one every year.
Okay.
And it's an awesome convention because it's in the prison and there's activity. And we record shows when we do the conventions. We record, and we'll pick up EVPs on our recording equipment when we're interviewing people there. It's amazing.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, didn't you have you said you had your hair pulled?
Yeah.
And you could hear someone talking and stuff.
Yeah, I was in a cell in solitary confinement, and this particular TV personality was provoking, and this woman got her gold bracelet ripped off her hand, and it flew out of the cell.
Like not Hollywood stuff. This is
No, not at all. It was like, oh man, it was really serious. I was like, this is scary. I was shaking. I was so scared.
so it is pretty physical. Then you said you even got your hair pulled.
Yeah. I've had that happen at several locations, mostly in haunted prisons. I don't know if it's just because it's predominantly male spirits there, but they like to tug hair. They like to pull on your clothes. I don't think I've ever been pinched, but I did get scratched one time at a location, which was really interesting.
Wow.
We're at a place called the Gill House, which is this historic mansion in Galion, Ohio, and it's famous for its architecture. and we were in there, and I was in this room, and I was looking at this really ornate fireplace, and all of a sudden I felt like this burning on my hand, and I had scratches across the top of my hand, like 3 scratches, which is the mark in ghost hunting or paranormal activity, is the mark of the Trinity. So it's usually something a little bit darker likes to scratch you up.
Which is weird because in that location, I really never felt anything evil or bad. There is a spirit of a Indian that likes to show his face to people,
Yeah, in the basement.
but other than that, I don't think there's anything evil in that place. But
I think it was with the people that we were with, actually.
That's
It was
possible.
following them.
Yeah. That's the thing. There's a lot, you like, we're not in a paranormal investigation group, but we go with a lot of the local groups to investigations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you never know, like there may be people, buying into these ghost hunts who have never ghost hunted, or I mean, you don't know their background, you don't know what their style of investigating is, and you don't know what they've been up to. They could be
Like
conjuring up
Ouija
some.
board in the cemetery.
Sure,
kind of stuff.
absolutely. Like taking dirt out of the cemetery is a big no-no. You take that home, and then you're just opening yourself up for.
they want a souvenir.
Yeah, that's the
I heard-
thing too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Just people taking items from locations. There have been times that people have taken objects out of haunted locations, or dirt from cemeteries, or rocks from historic sites. Like Joe and I were in Arizona, and we were on a I want to say like an archaeological tour. Yeah. And there was some Native American historic sites. There were like dwellings and cave drawings and things like that, and people were taking rocks from there, and I'm like, you guys probably shouldn't do that. Like there's a famous, and I can't think of the location now, where people had been taking rocks from that location, and then all of a sudden they would have all kinds of bad luck, and they would mail the rocks or whatever object it was that they were taking back to the location with an apology letter. Please, spirits, do not haunt me anymore. Please stop all the activity in my house.
Here's
I'm
your
sorry I
rock.
took this.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like,
I mean, stealing from a haunted location, that's like stealing from a church.
right.
You know?
Yeah.
So we have a question from Mr. Fausto Martinez. He's asking, do you protect yourselves when doing investigations, prayers, chants, or some sort?
Yeah, when Joe and I were, this is funny, not funny, but it's funny. When we first started, we did not know any of that. We didn't know that you have to tell the spirits to not follow you or come with you or attach to you. And we had gone to West Virginia Penitentiary, which is really, super active, super negative. There's a lot of dark energy there. So we were down in a place called Sugar Shack, which basically was the sub basement where they would just lock prisoners in there. It was pitch dark. There's no running water. There was no food. It was basically a free for all. And this went on for years.
No guards either.
No guards.
They would just lock the doors.
Just like all of them together in one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
From, and this went on from like the 1800s up until probably in the 70s,
That's
maybe
an old
into the
prison
80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were investigating in there. And it was just so frightening. And then when I came home, I was just not myself. And it took about 2 weeks. And I was like, I just felt weird. I didn't feel like myself. I wanted to drive my car under a bridge. I'm like, this is not me at all. And I was like, figured out I had an attachment. Something attached itself to me. So we went to a convention the following weekend. So this is about 2 weeks in from the investigation. And this Native American shaman had come up to me and Joe, and he's like, you have an attachment. I'm like, I know. He had to do some cleansing prayers to remove that from me. And as soon as he did, it was like I was just back to normal.
Like you were like relief, right? Like
yeah. So we always say, if you have a prayer that you like to do, or whatever your religion or your faith belief is, call upon those people to protect you. Only ask the positive spirits to step forward. when you leave, tell the spirits they can't come with you, that they have to stay where they are. And one thing we do, which not a lot of people do, is we leave our ghost hunting equipment in the car overnight. We don't take it in the house right
Oh
away
wow.
because you never know what with the they like are drawn to energy. Who's to say they can't get into your
Mhm.
stuff, and then you bring it in your house, and then all of a sudden, boom,
Yeah, because think about it.
Uncle Charlie's followed you home
Yeah,
and
during
sitting on your couch when.
during the whole investigation, you're saying, "Here, touch this," or "Come into this,
Mhm.
use this device," all that stuff. But when we get done, we pack up the stuff, we put it outside. We don't put it in the car right away, and we sometimes it depends on who we're with. Some groups gather in a big circle and they pray. Other groups don't do anything. They just walk out. But we try to make sure that before we walk over the threshold of the place that we're at, we say, "You're not allowed to follow us home. We'll come back and visit you, but we do not give you any permission to follow us home or to basically get into our bodies or whatever." We always say that. And I always say it as in, we'll come back and visit you, but you have to stay here. And it's mind over matter or the power of intention.
Yeah, and be respectful too
Mhm.
to the spirits because they were once human. Some of them were once human, and
Um, what do you think that attachment is? When they're attaching to you or to your, if there's a possibility of them attaching to the equipment, is it an attachment where they're like a malignant sort of attachment, the I want to haunt you, or is it, hey, I
it
like
could,
you?
it could
Mhm.
be anything. I've had a child spirit follow me. It was like we were in this school where there had been over many years, children who have passed away, and they remained at that school, and I'm very open. I'm like, I'm here. I'm a great auntie 20 times, 23 times. So, I'm telling the spirit of this child that it's okay if you want to communicate. I'm a nice person. I'm not going to hurt you or,
Right.
you know, and, and I think they maybe attached to
They can
somebody
feel
who's,
that emotion
yeah,
Mhm.
the motherly,
versus
vibe.
versus somebody who fears them. You know.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it could be a positive or negative spirit. Of course, there's always dark entities out there that want to attach to people who have maybe um, a weakened emotional
Like
state.
they can infiltrate
Hmm.
Mhm.
your mind or your soul or somehow attach themselves.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Sure.
Yeah. We're not sure exactly how they attach to us. Whether it's
The back
in
seat
our
of the car,
mind
or
or any of that.
Yeah. Your energy field,
Yeah,
your
maybe
aura.
maybe your aura or something. But we have talked to a lot of people, and Jen has had the experience, and even me. I mean, I've gone to shows and walk up to psychics, and they tell me I have attachments. I think technically everybody has attachments, but it's how you tell them how much they can invade your space.
Yeah.
Like that's why we always say, we say prayers. Sometimes we say prayers at the beginning, like keep everybody safe. But anytime you do a paranormal investigation, do some kind of closing prayer to let them know that they cannot enter your space.
a goodbye.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
and be respectful. Like I said, I always tell them, we'll come back. Just just don't follow us home unless you want to
Yeah.
clean the house or something.
Then go and feel free.
Yeah.
Um, all three of you or whatever.
Hmm.
Right.
So you mentioned leaving your equipment in the vehicle, and this. I mean, that sounds wise, actually. Because we still don't understand the way energy works. We do know energy could be transferred because we
Hmm.
see it every day when we use our Bluetooth or we use a microwave. All these things that this is actual energy. We know it transfers somewhere. We eat food, it transfers into our body. Now we have energy, and then we transfer that into work or whatever, and then we got to refuel. Our cars run on energy, some sort of
Yeah.
energy.
Right.
So these energies, from what we understand, they can't, an energy can transfer. So it's very, very wise, I would say, that you guys leave your equipment there. That way, it gives it some time to to realize, well, there's nothing here. Let's go back home or whatever. I
Mhm.
mean, is that why you do it?
What, to leave our stuff out there?
Like to leave it there, like to
Yeah.
simmer
And,
down a little?
there's other reasons too. One is the main thing is if the energy is in there and it can absorb into the equipment, we say the prayer, it stays out of there. Another thing too is you got to remember the places that we go into.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're into old prisons, we're into um,
Buildings,
old
mansions,
mansions,
full
psych
of,
wards. All
full of mold.
yeah. So,
Most of them are full of mold, and that's even scarier than the ghosts.
but
Yeah.
we leave it in the car too because if there's any attachments like bugs
Yeah.
or anything like that,
Spiders.
we can tell that
Jesus, no spiders.
we
Yeah.
we had an investigation one time, and we get to this house, and they're like, "Can you do an investigation in our house?" And this was another team asking us. We were not asked by the homeowner to do it. We were asked by a different team to help them, and we got there, and literally the floor was soaking wet from animal stuff,
Oh man.
and it was so bad. We actually refused to go back in.
Yeah.
And the equipment in that case was even my microphones and my mic cords. Anything that touched that house was outside, and I actually cleaned it with the purple soap, to clean everything, because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, we walked into this house and it was completely full of stuff. I mean, there were thousands of jewelry boxes and thousands of snow globes and trinkets everywhere. And 2 people had passed away in this house, and this daughter of the people who had passed away was concerned because she kept seeing something in the house. Now, myself and another investigator saw a woman in a mirror. We both saw the same thing at the same time. But like we walked in the house, it was so disgusting. It was like you couldn't even be in there for like 10 minutes.
Like, did somebody live there, or was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's even
Actually, the lady died in the house, like
And
what, a
I
week
know I
later,
saw
or a week
her.
earlier.
Yeah, I know I saw her in that mirror because we both saw her at the same time. We about jumped out of our skins. But yeah, you just gotta be careful. Like we were in a haunted prison, or no, the hospital. We went into Old St. Joseph's
Oh,
Hospital
yeah.
in
Love that
Lorain,
place.
Ohio. It was an abandoned hospital. It got shut down in the 80s, and they really worked really hard to keep it up and clean. And the windows weren't broken at the time, so they could do investigations in there. And we had gone in there, and we were the last people to investigate before they were going to tear it down. It was super active, super haunted. There was like angels being seen in there, spirits,
Full body
children.
apparitions of doctors.
But the
Wow.
scariest thing was we were walking down the hall and we heard people. There were homeless people in there,
Oh, there was actual people there.
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
people in there. And it was super scary because it's such a large building. They could have been anywhere. And we luckily were one of the people on the team was in law enforcement, and he's like, you got to be super careful because homeless people carry weapons.
Mhm.
Because they're out on the streets and trying to defend themselves. So that was really eerie because we came up upon somebody had propped one of the doors open, and
Wow.
it was closed when we first got there, so they were in the building. So it was like, and that same place, the basement was flooded. Like it was an old where the generators were for the hospital.
Okay.
And we walked into this room, and there was like this rusted railing, and literally if you would have touched that railing, it would have crumbled. You would have
Wow.
fell down and fell into the
Oh,
water.
wow.
And it was the most disgusting water. And I was like, like if you're not a seasoned or you're not
Aware of your
aware,
surroundings.
Mhm.
you have to be very careful.
We have a question here. Do you carry any protection items or crystals or amulets, anything like that?
She does. I don't.
I just carry crystals with me. I have not so much for ghost hunting, but I carry them more for like to attract things like good luck. I always put citrine in in my bra.
I don't need to know that.
Yeah, right. Like weird sister stuff, but because it attracts finances and wealth. I really like to talk about crystals, but that's a whole nother show, right?
We have
But,
another. I'm sorry, we have another
What?
comment. It says, once during an investigation, I had to leave due to a strong smell of garlic,
Mhm.
which made me feel extremely nauseous. I never understood that. By any chance, can you explain what happened? Like, have you ever been in a situation like that? But
Yeah,
when you smell
there's. Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Lots of times it's residual smells like lavender and different flowers,
cigarette
but
smoke, cigar
yeah.
smoke.
The smell of garlic is possibly, now I'm not saying it is, but seeing that you did get a little nauseous with that, it could have been something a little demonic. You know, lots of times people, when they get around demonic spirits, they'll smell the sulfur. I haven't heard much about garlic, but they'll smell sulfur or something burning, like electrical burning. Whenever you used to remember in the day, you used to put stereos in your car and the wires are burning. You smell that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
plenty of them
you'll
stereos.
smell that. One thing that I smell, and I don't know if it's demonic, but I smell the smell of burning, like vacuum cleaner belt. If you ever had that happen,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's the kind of smells I'll get. But it could be any kind of smell. But usually, if it's a bad smell and you get sick from it, it might be a little demonic or evil.
Negative.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. But we went into a hotel in New York called the Shanley Hotel. It's this historic haunted hotel, and I kept smelling cat, and I was like, I'm allergic to cats, so I'm like, ugh, it
Wow.
smells like cat. Well, there was no cats in the building. They had a ghost cat. I saw a ghost cat walk
What?
by me, and I'm like, I just saw a cat walk by, and they're like, we don't have any cats here. And I'm like, I know I saw it, and I smelt it.
A ghost cat.
So
Ghost
can
kitty.
your allergies act up by a ghost?
Maybe. You never know. You never
They're right.
know.
They could be trying to trigger something to get you out of there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I know I'm allergic to cats. I don't want to be here.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Like that's how. I
And
mean, they
we-
could probably read us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel that they can put things into our minds and actually make it so that we think we're hearing it. Because I've had situations where I was investigating with people and we're this close, and I'll hear something they won't,
Hmm.
and vice versa.
Mhm.
Clear as day, I'll hear someone say, "Hey, what are you doing?" or something like that.
And you expect everybody
Somehow-
to react the same as
Yeah.
you, and then you're like, "Why nobody's reacting?"
Yeah. So somehow I think maybe I'm not positive, but I think that they can put the sounds in our heads and make it sound like we heard it.
I think that's
You
a
know?
powerful enough spirit. It could manipulate you in any
Mhm.
way. You could have hallucinations.
Yeah.
You could, hear things. You could feel things.
Mhm.
Anything's possible, I think.
A whole different. It'll bring up a whole different sense. Instead of using our hearing or our seeing, we can feel it, or we can, like you said, hear it without anybody else hearing it.
Yeah. Because think about it. How would a ghost make sound? They don't have vocal cords. They don't have, they're not moving the air. So that's why I think that they have the power to manipulate the energy around our minds and make it sound like we hear them.
Like download that message into your brain,
Yeah.
basically, or
Mhm.
Bluetooth it to you.
Bluetooth.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have your Bluetooth enabled every time.
Right. Sure.
So going back to the bums, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, have you ever had any experiences when you
I
were
mean-
podcasting or doing your
No.
show?
Like I'm not
The
a ghost hunter.
electronics?
Or like no, actually, man, this last time I had this guy, Daniel Jackson. You know Daniel Jackson?
Mhm.
By any chance?
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking, and then around 42 minutes into the show, I hear a lady yelling in my earphones. And I'm just like, I even look kind of like what, like that, and I'm just like, all right, cool, whatever. I'm just imagining it, and then I heard it again, and I'm just like, all right, I don't know what's going on now. Like just keep the show rolling, like
Yeah.
give it
Yeah.
that. So that's just during a show, but previously, a few things that I have encountered. Like growing up, my friend would always call me. I was around 16 years old, and I remember he would always call me like at 2, 3 in the morning, like, "Hey, bro, I can't sleep, man." It's already been a few nights that I hear like something yelling in the woods because he lived in a trailer and it was surrounded by woods, like 5 acres of just woods, And I was like, "Man, you're tripping, bro. Like, like I don't know what you're smoking or whatever. And then, so I mean, it was a few nights, and I was just like, just chill out, man. Just you're probably dreaming. So one day I go to his house. We're playing basketball outside of his house, and then I remember his mom comes outside and calls him like, "Hey, someone's calling on the phone." And he goes inside. The girlfriend was calling him or whatever, and I stay out there shooting hoops by myself. And I heard the same exact sound he heard, and it was like a wailing sound that came from not a direction. It was just like coming from everywhere.
Oh my god.
And I just ran. I ran inside.
I'm out of here.
Yeah. So that's one of the creepy things I have felt. Like while laying in bed, somebody lay next to me. Like and this was like when I was a teenager, and I know that I felt something like weight.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I ignore it. Um, I've had this one was kind of weird because I don't understand if there's a possibility of what would you call it? Like the ones that turn into animals,
Oh, shapeshifters.
like shapeshifters. Because I mean, out it was probably around 2, 3 in the morning. Dogs were barking like crazy, and I wake up super angry. I was probably like 18 years old. My wife was pregnant at that time, and so I go outside and I'm like super angry at the dogs. Like, stop! I'm still living at my mom's, and I yell at the dogs. You guys need to bark when you see something, not just bark randomly. I'm trying to sleep here, man. And I walk back inside my house, and I see something just pass right by the window, and I
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
hold up, like hold up. And this went. So I go back and I just grab a pipe, big pipe, and I go outside to see what it was. Like, what was, brave 18-year-old, half asleep, angry person, because I just got woken up. And so I go and I'm thinking, man, maybe there's somebody trying to break in or something. So I walk out the front door, around the edge, whatever, the corner of the house, and there was a huge pig, man. That pig had to be at least like 3.5 feet to 4 feet long.
Podzilla.
Yeah, long, all black. And I just throw the pipe at him, and he just stays staring. Like the pipe didn't even budge him. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting any closer. So then the next day, I tell my mom, like, hey, mom, man, there was a big black pig, here. My mom like grew up with a whole Hispanic culture. So right away, she's from the ranch in Mexico. So she starts thinking it's it's there's a devil. She's like the Bobby Boucher mom. Everything's a devil.
A devil.
Like, it's the devil. She's like, if you ever see it again, you let me know. And Lord behold, man, that next night, dogs start barking, and I go outside, and there it was, that damn pig again. And I wake up my mom like, hey, mom, wait, mom, there's a pig again. And she gets up all brave, and I thought she was gonna freak out. No, she starts clapping like, hey, judges, judges, judges. I call it, I guess that's the
Come
call.
here. Come
Yeah,
here,
like,
dinner.
come
You're
here.
dinner.
And no, he just walked off into there was on the back of the yard. It was like big tall grass and to never be seen again. I asked my neighbor, "Hey, did you ever see this?" And he was like, "Man, you should have called me, bro. We would have made, uh, you know, anything we could have out of it."
Yeah.
But that was a trip to me because just why at that time pigs are not
Mhm.
really nocturnal. It wasn't a wild pig, like a
Mhm.
javelin or whatever.
Mhm.
It was a big old pig, man, all black. So who knows? That was just
Yeah.
weird.
Skinwalker.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I think there's
Um,
another question there.
yeah, he says, "Do you think living near a water source, amps up paranormal activity?"
It's like a conduit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We see a lot of that. A lot of, land that's full of quartz and granite. That's a good one. But the water is definitely,
Yeah, a lot of the ley lines, if you look at a map, they follow water traces. So, they, one of the great conductors of energy is water. Um, you know, railroad tracks are a
yeah, I
great
was thinking
one
that.
too.
Railroad tracks.
Railroad tracks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there seems to be a lot of activity along railroad tracks because the electricity or the energy that goes
Mhm.
through those.
Plus, you think about this too: is a lot of your Native Americans or as the ancient peoples lived by the water sources.
Right.
So if they're haunting the land, it's
They're
possible
haunting
that
their
they can
land.
use and they can use that water as a conduit, which they did when they were living too. Is they used that was the highways.
Farming, for
Hmm.
drinking, for the farm, for their animals. So
Another
wow.
thing that I saw is like we were talking about that prison earlier in down in West Virginia. Um, it's actually they call it Moundsville Prison because there's a Mount Indian burial mound right across the street from it. And I've been doing some research about Indian burial mounds and burial sites, and I found that if there's a mound, chances are 99% of the time the area around it is haunted in some way. I've seen some of the most haunted locations and found out that they had Indian burial mounds there. Like downtown Toledo here, we have a place called the Oliver House, and that is very haunted. There's some history behind that too, and we found that there was a Indian burial mound next to it that they tore down so that they could build the parking lot,
Wow.
and
And it's right on
and
the
it's haunted
Maumee,
now.
right on the Maumee River, which is like the main artery that goes through
Mhm.
our town, um,
Well,
going out to the Great Lakes.
and
Yeah,
usually, we think about ghosts and everybody thinks, well, somebody died here last year, but we're not even thinking about the other 1,800 people who died,
yeah,
BC on the same land you're standing on or whatever, right?
Right.
Somebody
yeah,
could be, hey, look who showed up.
yeah. Daniel.
Hey.
Daniel, he says he's a pretty good conductor.
Yeah,
For
Hey,
sure.
yeah, last time on the show with Daniel, the comments for some reason didn't even work. There was people commenting, but they weren't showing up. So yeah, he's a whole different kind of energy.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, Ray says, "Great shoe, Abel." I don't know how he can see my shoes from here,
I should.
but I'm guessing I'm
I've
guessing
got
he meant show.
socks. Yeah.
It's awesome.
So I go back to talk about the bums in that hospital. I was seeing some, and I can see how, just by me watching another show that I've been following, some guy in Mexico. He does a lot of the same things. He flies to the most haunted places in Mexico, and that's the first thing he does. He said before he didn't used to carry anything on him, and now he doesn't want to
Yeah.
say what he's carrying, but he says now I'm carrying something that
Yeah.
criminals carry.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I can see exactly why. It's like a ghost can't really. I mean, depending on their ability to their power, right? But somebody can end your life, So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said it too. Is you have to know where you're at and what you're doing. And we don't carry guns. I don't carry a gun, but we were like, I don't know about Jen, but I was always like, why would paranormal investigators carry guns and all that? Until we went to some of these locations where, like the hospital, we're walking along and we see this door open and you can hear someone talking and it's not a spirit,
Right.
and it makes you think. You got to be really careful about these places that you choose to go to and do your research before you go in. Now, a lot of people don't want to do research about the hauntings, but do your research about the area. Look at the area, look at the building. We had a situation here in Toledo where these kids broke into a building to go ghost hunting, and one of the kids fell down an elevator shaft that was open.
oh my,
So you got to be careful, and
16 years old and he died.
wow,
yeah, you really have to be careful. You don't break into places, don't
Yes,
trespass.
We don't encourage that or
But-
recommend it.
Yeah, and the most scary thing are the living.
I can see. That was another one of that's another one of my mom's things. She said the dead can't do much to you. Be careful of the living.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure.
And Joe, you were telling me also about something you had you had encountered. Was it a shadow or something like that?
A few times, yeah. One of the most memorable ones, I had two of them in my bedroom. The first one, I woke up about probably 2 or 3 in the morning. And for some reason, I just woke up. I looked up, and there was about a 7-foot tall figure leaning over me while I'm laying in bed. And I could tell he had one hand down on the bed. and he was kind of like looking at me, just staring. And I just kind of stared up at him, and he vanished. And I was like, okay. And I spent the next hour or so trying to figure out, was there something, a shadow of the light? Was it actually something? But I can't figure it out. There's no way that their light coming through the windows would cause that type of shadow where it looked like somebody leaning down over the bed looking at me. And then the second one, I woke up one night, and at the end of my bed, against the wall, there was a red shadow figure, which I've never heard of.
Wow.
A red shadow figure. And it was in the shape of a person, probably about 5 to 6 feet tall. And same thing, I just looked at it and it vanished. And it's not, I don't drink. I was not partying that night, but it was just something I saw in rooms. And to this day, I can't figure out what it was.
Wow.
But, and I've had other things happen. One of the only time I've ever got scared, we were down in Pennsylvania at a place called the Black Cross. Now, your listeners can look it up. It's called the Black Cross. It's very interesting. It's just a little patch of field in Pennsylvania where during the yellow fever epidemic, they had immigrant workers doing the mining and stuff there, and they all passed away because of the yellow fever. Well, the Catholic Church wouldn't bury them at the cemetery because they weren't Catholic. So a farmer actually offered his land up to bury these people. So they did. And they took a giant railroad ties and made a big black cross. So that's why it's called Black Cross.
Oh, wow.
Now you go there, and there's basically, if someone took a 5-gallon bucket, filled it with cement, flipped it over, that's the monument. And
Wow.
there is a historical marker there, but the monument itself is all gone. There's no Black Cross there anymore. But we went there with our friend, and when we were there, we heard babies crying. We heard people talking. And looking up on the web, that's what happens there. People say they hear babies crying. I don't know why, but that's one thing. Well, I was standing there, and there was a stump next to me. I knew that the stump was there. I put one of my pieces of equipment on it just so I wouldn't have to set it on the ground. And it was probably a 3 to 4 foot stump. And I'm sitting there, and I turn, and it turned into a person. And
Whoa.
I turned, he was there, scared the crap out of me. I turned, he was gone. It was back to the stump. But I could look at it. He had the sort of dark skin. He had a black hat on, had a red shirt, and then he had those old pants that are like wool, gray wool pants, sort of like you see from the Civil War.
Oh, yes.
But
Yeah.
he wasn't a Civil War soldier, but that type of pants. I mean, I can explain him right to
The detail.
his hair and everything. And my adrenaline was going that time. I mean, I never got scared in any investigation we've done except that, because it seemed like he was jumping out of the woods at me.
And it's funny because I was standing next to Joe and I saw him react. I didn't know what he was reacting to, but I saw him physically jump. I was like, what in the world is going on?
Like, what just happened?
Yeah, it was.
And I ran out crying.
Big baby.
But no, that was, I mean, I've had a lot of situations happen, and that was the only time I've ever got scared. But just imagine you're standing there and someone jumping out the woods at you, and that's what it looked like.
Wow. Yeah. Just out of nowhere, right? You're just like here, and then you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, what
Yeah,
was
exactly. And then it was gone.
that? So Daniel says that red shadow is negative energy.
I believe that.
Could be, yeah. But like I say, it was just there, and then it just went away, and I haven't seen it since.
That's good. Maybe
Yeah.
it followed you home for a little bit.
Yeah,
Wanted to see what kind of
check out the room. And,
right, what kind of snacks does he keep around?
yeah, exactly.
We're all about our snacks for sure.
And Daniel says he used to practice crossing spirits at working hospitals. So I guess hospitals are a hotspot. Huh?
Yeah.
I love investigating hospitals. That's one of the things, because you have everything. You have every emotion there.
Here's a crazy one you have to see. All right. It says that the black figure who stood over you was a man named George. He died at the age of 42 in 1872.
Oh, okay.
So that's what he's picking up.
I'm writing it down. 42.
Oh.
And what year was that again?
1872. We'll have to look at that because I wonder if it was somebody in our family.
I don't know. But it was, like I said, I was just laying there and I just looked up and it was there and I didn't freak out or anything. I just looked, because it just vanished and I'm like, okay, all right. I'm like, what happened?
What's really weird also with Daniel, he on the last show, we were talking and he, I started sharing an experience with him and then he just, all of a sudden just stopped me and he was like, do you know a man with bushy eyebrows and curly hair? And I wasn't thinking at the moment, I was just like into the show. So I was like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. As soon as we get off the show, I was like, boom, it's this guy, like,
Yeah.
wow, crazy. I told my wife started almost crying.
Oh,
so, Fausto says here, do y'all work with mediums or sidekicks? Fausto, Daniel Jackson on the comments is a medium. Do you guys work with mediums, sidekicks, or on any times that you do go out there? Have you had the opportunity to?
We from doing all the conventions and going to things, we have met so many different people who have different levels of abilities. Like we had Daniel on our show and he was amazing. He told us some interesting things about our past life. Daniel, didn't you tell us how many past lives that we had?
Yeah, you did.
He told me how many past lives I had.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So it's like we're. Good question, Jeff. Who's a family member? Oh, okay, cool. Because I thought we had somebody in our family. Was it something about a railroad? Were they run over by a train or something?
Yeah, but I don't remember who it was. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, no, can tell us.
Our uncle was hit by a train.
Yeah. So, so we've met many different people. Like I think I've met people that think they have abilities, and then I meet people that are just so gifted and talented. You're in awe of them. So I love it. Like, bring it on. I want to hear all about it. Like, I want to hear about my past lives. I want to hear about
And when we go on investigation, like we said, we don't actually have our own team. We go with other people, and a lot of those teams have psychics on their team that if they need to have them come in and do stuff, they do. But personally, we don't. We don't know anybody, or we don't work with psychics ourselves. But we've known a lot. We met a lot of really interesting people. I've met psychics at conventions that come up to me and say stuff to me, and I'm like, I've never met you before in my life, but you just said something to me that, and it's not like, oh, do you know someone? I sense that you have a great grandparent that has passed away. Not something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Something that, people come up and say, you talked to somebody last week or something like that, It's like, wow, how do they know this stuff? I don't have that ability. I know that everybody has the ability, but I just have never brought it out to where I can do it.
I think it takes training. You have to really, like anything, whatever it is, you have to practice.
Yeah.
It's like podcasting or having a radio show. I'm like, the more you do, the better you get, right? Kind of investigating too.
Yeah.
Because believe me, you go back and listen to our first 3 shows, you'll be like, oh my word, how these people ever keep going.
Look at you now, 5 years later.
5 years later. We're old pros.
So Jen, scariest situation you've experienced would be scariest, most.
Yeah, I've had a couple. Like I've heard. Okay, so this is interesting. I don't talk about this one very much, but maybe 25 years ago, my sister and her husband, their brother-in-law, committed suicide, and they were all very young. They were probably in their late 20s, early 30s, and it was really devastating for them. And they went away, so I think it was probably 18, 19, somewhere in there. And I was staying at their house to watch their cats because they just needed to get away. It was just, they needed a break. And I was in the house, and at about 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear their cats screaming. And not like I've heard cats fighting, and I've heard cats, make him whoopee. But you know, like these cats were screaming, and all of a sudden I hear the most deepest demonic voice say, "Get out." It shouted at me, and I got the hell out of that house so fast.
Wow.
It was really scary because I didn't, I wasn't really into or knew much about, spirits at that time. And then, I had, um, it's not really a scary experience, but I had a neighbor lady, an elderly neighbor lady who had passed away 3 months later appear in my bedroom. I was like sound asleep one night, and I remember because I was dreaming. And have you ever been out in an electrical storm where it's like thundering and your whole body just gets those like tingles all over because you're too close to the thunderstorm or
Oh,
electricity? I felt like that, and I rolled over, and she was just standing there.
wait, your neighbor was there?
She was just standing there, and she was like milky,
Oh,
misty.
but she was dead.
She had passed away.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought it was like your neighbor and
Oh
invading your
no!
privacy or something. Okay,
Oh,
okay.
that's my other neighbors I have now. That's a whole other story, right? Like
Wow.
crazy
So
neighbors.
you wake up,
I
or
roll
like you're.
over, and
Uh-huh.
she's standing there, and I wasn't scared. I was just more in shock. Just like, why is she standing there? And I knew it was a spirit because she was transparent, but I could still make out it was her outline. And I felt really bad because I rolled over to think about it for a second. Like, okay, wait, I was trying to process it, and I rolled back, and she was gone. And I until this day, I still feel bad because I should have said like, "Are you okay?" or "Hi, how you doing?" or something. And I didn't. I just like I wasn't thinking, but and then I never saw her again.
That
So
would freak anyone out.
yeah.
I mean, without the experience that you have from. So yeah, a normal person would have probably. I would have moved out the next day or that same
Well,
night. I would have packed my stuff and slept outside or something.
you could do a whole show on Jen's house.
I know
I'm
you
telling
can just do it, Sean. It was like Joe and I were standing in my house one time,
Uh-huh.
and we were just standing like this far apart from each other. We were just talking in general about something, and he was standing in the kitchen, and I was in the dining room, and a shadow came swooping right in between both of us, and just went out into the kitchen, out the kitchen window,
Yeah.
and it was like,
We're just like,
what was that? And then like I have this kind of stuff happen in my house every once in a while. Not so much lately, and I don't know if that's just because I haven't been like outdoors hunting, or if it's the veil's just not so thin. I don't even know, but I know Daniel has told me there are some spirits in my house. He said there was a boy and a girl, kid spirit, a couple dog spirits, I think 2 women and a man that are there, and they don't want to be bothered, and I don't care like if they're there as long as they're not scaring me or waking me up because I need my beauty sleep, right? I get like I'm like working full time doing a podcast and running my side hustles, it's like there's very little time for sleep. Don't wake me up, ghosts. I want to get my
And we're cool.
4 hours in. But yeah, so like I've heard whistling in my house.
Wow.
My mom heard it as well. We were there one day and we heard somebody whistle, and we thought it was my dad because my dad was a whistler. And she's like, "Oh, your dad's here," and I'm like, "No, Dad doesn't drive anymore." But we both heard it. It was really interesting
A whistle.
experience. But I've heard that before, and I thought people thought I was crazy because they kept saying, "Guys, I keep hearing whistling in my house." And then finally, somebody was there and heard it, so it was like, yay!
That's funny because I had forgotten all about this, but my wife was reminding me last time. She was all like, she told me, "Remember that time you and your mom kept hearing something whistling, and we kept looking everywhere like crazy, like what is it?
Mhm.
What's going on?" At the end, we ended up finding it was like a plushy toy.
yeah.
It was like running out of battery or something.
Oh, no.
So there was an explanation to that one.
Yeah.
So that was me, on my ghost hunting adventure. Found a plushie.
Yeah. Debunked.
Yeah.
Yeah, debunked. And Joe, you were telling me about that recent friend that had passed away, or that friend
Yeah.
that had passed away,
Mhm.
and you were able to capture something at EVP.
Yeah, we were recording one time, and we've had this happen to us a few times. When we record, actually get EVPs over
That's
during
both
the
of your
show.
friends. Like it's a friend of you, a
Yeah.
friend of you.
So we were recording, And I know you can't see it, but on the other side of the table here is the doorway out to the other side of the house. And we're sitting here, and I told Jen, I'm like, I just saw a blue light go past. So we were done recording. She jumped up, grabbed the spirit box, and grabbed her phone to record it. And we actually got an EVP. And I don't know if do you want me to play it for you?
If you can play it, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, let me bring it up here. And I won't say what it is until afterwards, but it's. Okay, did you hear that? Did it work?
No.
Okay. So, anyways, Jen grabs the spirit box, and you can hear the radio sweep, and she's like, "Whose house are we in? We want to know if you know who lives here." And clear as day, in Jackie's voice, you can hear, "Hey, Joe," and it's a definite Class A EVP, so clear.
It's
Wow.
Yeah, and it was her voice. It was how she would say it, but it's just, "Hey, Joe."
I want to see if I can pull it up because I know you had sent it
All
to
right.
me. I want to see if I can pull it up and play it. Like,
Yeah,
let me see if it's this one.
yeah. I wasn't sure if it would play on our end because of the way this setup is.
Let me see. Hold on.
All right.
Okay, I found it. I found it here. I'm not sure if I can play the audio.
We'll try. If not, it's no big deal. I can post it on our page if people want.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I just heard it right now. So Jen, is that you that says, whose house are we in right now?
Yeah.
And then it replies, "Hi, Joe."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Freaky. And that's what I say. That's the big thing about my experiences with her is I get stuff like that all the time. The day after she passed away, see, I had to drive 2 hours to the hospital. They said they were going to pull the plug on her, and I knew I wasn't going to make it, so I drove there, and a few things happened on the way there. But the morning after we left, after she passed, I get in my car, and I turn on the radio, and there's a song that instantly starts, and it's a song that she played over and over and over and over.
Wow.
And it's not a normal song that you would hear on the radio stations that much. Back in the 90s it was, and it was on a station out of Detroit that I didn't even have on the radio when I went home.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I turned the key, and right away, not even 12 hours after she passed, there was a sign from her.
Yeah.
And I know I had the radio on the way home. I really honestly don't remember driving home that night, but it was a station that I never listened to. And that's happened so many times where different communications from her in my dreams, like the first dream I had of her was 2 days after she passed. She appeared to me in my dream, and I looked at her and said, "The last time I saw you, you were dead." You know? And she didn't respond. I don't know why, but yeah, it's just a lot.
That's where a lot of my communication occurs is in my dreams, like so much, But I have also like a lot of sleep paralysis. I fly out of my body into the stars. I mean, it's crazy, and that's a whole different scary topic there.
I wish I could have that.
I want to show you this. Let's see if we're able to hear it. I'm going to share the screen because I think this is one of the most credible things I've ever heard. I've heard other things. Let me see if you can hear the audio. Well, this is. Can you hear audio? No.
Yeah, it worked wrong. All right.
Okay.
Whose house am I in right now? I'm trying to confirm that you know who lives here.
So, if it was audible to you, then everybody else was able to hear.
Yeah.
Or anybody out in the comments, if you did hear that, can you just confirm that it was heard? So that's actually, it's a great. That's I would have to say, the bond that you held with her was a strong bond where it was almost as like, hey, I'll always be here for you kind of bond.
Yeah.
And
we're like, Yeah, we were like psychic friends, if you want to call it that. I would call her on the phone, and it would be busy because she's calling me. Or, I remember one story. MTV came out, and I am like, I gotta call Jackie. MTV's on, and I picked up the phone, and she was in Florida at the time, and the phone was busy, busy, busy. I'm like, oh man, I gotta tell her. And then my phone rings. She's like, there's a thing on called MTV. I'm like, yeah.
What's interesting about that is I think, you don't always get a direct message from a spirit. You look for signs and symbols. Like if you're trying to connect with a loved one that passed, it's not always going to be like you're going to see them sitting in your back seat of your car, right? It could be, you seeing something that represents them, or like Joe said, a song, or maybe you read something. And it's like, I feel like they send us messages in indirect ways too, like maybe you're walking down the street and you see a playing card, and it had something special meaning between the two of you. It's interesting because I think the spirits want to communicate with us, and sometimes they have to use alternative methods to do that,
like whatever possible, right?
Yeah. Well, I look at it this way. My best friend now, Dana, she had a situation with her mom's boyfriend. He passed away, and everybody but her mom was getting messages from him. And she was kind of upset about that. And I said, well, think of it this way. If a spirit all of a sudden pops up in front of you and standing there, you're going to go, it's going to, one, scare the crap out of you. Two, you're going to be scared of it. Or three, you're going to end up in the loony bin. And the thing
Let's
is,
all go.
they'll appear to you. They'll either appear to other people so that they can communicate to you, or they'll appear to you in a way that doesn't scare you. And that could be
a reminder, right?
A reminder, a song, something on the wall moving, or anything that would make you think of
something that's not going to make you die of a heart attack.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I'll give you an example. So our dad passed. Okay, so Joe and I put on a convention. So we wanted to do our own convention. And we were doing the Toledo Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention. The day we were doing our convention, my dad went into hospice and passed away, right? One of his last words to me was, do the show. He wanted us to do the show, right? Like the show must go on, whatever happens with him. The 2-year anniversary of his passing was just this past October 13th. I get in my car to go to work. I turn on the radio, and there's a girl on the radio saying, do the show, do the show.
I didn't know about that.
I'm like, if that's not a sign from Papa on, like the second anniversary of his family, I don't know what was.
Wow.
I was like, it just blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh.
So the more I hear from everybody who's actually, I guess, in tune, or like for example, you guys who are the paranormal podcast, you guys do the ghost hunting, all these other things. The more in tune you are with all that stuff, it's like everything is actually real and it's all out there. And to one point that Daniel says here, he says, people are scared because we have not properly educated on the truth of life and death. Yeah. And it's a big mystery. Some people will go by a whole entire life not even having any experience with anything. And I mean, definitely it's a sixth sense or beyond that you guys have developed, being able to open that up.
Yeah.
Another thing that Daniel had to say. He said, the spirit in your house, Jen, they like you. You're crazy, but it's got nothing to do.
That's true. That's so true, right? Like, been called worse, right?
Okay, so it looks like everybody was actually able to hear that EVP. Like I said, that's one of the most credible things. It's not there's no doubt. A lot of these EVPs you hear, there's some kind of, you hear mustard, I hear ketchup, somebody hears mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Here, everybody heard the same thing.
Mhm. And that's, I play that to people and I don't, tell them what it is. And they all say the same thing. They're like, that. And I actually played that for Jackie's mother. And she's like, that was her voice.
Wow.
You
Who
know?
would recognize more the voice of her daughter?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it was just a quick thing. It's not like we were doing a ghost hunt or anything where we were sitting. I just swear I saw a blue light flash past and we were done recording. So Jen just jumped up and that's what came of it.
Wow. Oh, so there was a visual before that, before you.
Yeah, I saw like a blue light go across my. Okay, so like I said, on the other side of the camera, there's a door out of the studio into the rest of the house. There's like a little room and then a little tiny hallway in the bedroom and the living room, and that's where I saw the light go past. So,
Wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
a visible orb, not a camera orb.
Right.
Not a camera picture orb. That's in
Right.
every. I can open my phone up app right now, and there's an orb.
Yeah,
Right.
Stephanie says, "Have you ever been somewhere and instantly felt like a deja vu moment?"
oh yeah.
That happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel says that deja vu is a memory.
I think there's a lot of different things that people say deja vu is, but it could be any. We just like the paranormal, we really don't know. But it's obviously a memory of some sort because you're like, wait a minute, I did that before. It's like you did it before.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I've been in locations where I've walked in and I could tell, old buildings and that I've never been to. I walk in, I'm like, oh wait a minute, this room is over here. This room is over here. And it's like, how do you know this stuff?
Right.
Yeah, and I have like I guess a belief, an explanation to what I believe. Right, it's just an opinion on deja vu.
Mhm.
Is the way the body works and how there's so many chemicals being released in our body that we don't even know what chemicals are being released at the moment. Melatonin,
Yeah.
dopamine, and all the other stuff, right? That we don't
Mhm.
even know. It's like they said, you can get drunk off the own chemicals that you have in your brain.
Yeah.
There's an imbalance that can occur, and all of a sudden you can't walk. Or so, anyways.
Yeah.
From the research I've done on deja vu, because it's one topic that I have looked into, is that it could be when like a chemical reaction that occurs and it occurred before, but
Yeah.
some chemical reactions will occur 3-4 times throughout your whole life, and every time it occurs there's a chemical reaction inside your body and your brain is like, hey man, I feel like I've lived through this before. Like, what's going on? What is it? But it could be a reaction. I don't, like I said, it's just an opinion, guys.
Yeah. And I've heard studies where it takes time for your senses to figure out everything. I mean, the speed of light, obviously, but it takes time for that sense to say, okay, if you look at something, you get the sensory in your eye, it goes to your brain, and then your brain thinks about what's going on with this. And I've heard that deja vu could be something like that, where it's just like I don't want to say disconnect because that doesn't sound right, but your brain just doesn't pick it up quick enough. And then when it does, it catches it as a memory instead of actually seeing what it is. But I don't know. We really don't know.
Look, this is actually a good point here. Memories are held within the soul, not the body. So
Yeah.
it could be a memory of before, right, that it's occurring again.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know. That's just it. And that's another thing with this paranormal stuff. The more we learn, the less we know.
That's true.
I almost became a meme around.
Don't choke it. I know CPR.
So Fausto says, so do you consider orbs paranormal, or are they something else?
It all depends. It all depends what they are. I mean, you got to remember, I have personally seen visible orbs. Like we said, I saw that blue light in my room or in my hallway there. I have sat in a theater at 3 or 4 in the morning, pitch black theater, and watched lights dance across the stage. Visible orbs. We've recorded video where I had to use a flashlight as the camera or as the light because it was an old video camera. And so when I was doing that video, I made sure that I was watching the light beam and not what was on the screen, to make sure that if I saw a bug or I saw a piece of dust go through, I would let Jen know. But in that video, you can clearly see And I'll send it to you after we do this. But you can clearly see she'll stand there, and all of a sudden this light just goes.
Oh, so you have a video of that?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I can't show it here, but I'll send it to you.
Do you have access? Like, if you see the screen here, do you have access to where there's like a little plus sign at the bottom? You might not. I would hope you do. No, like under the comments.
No.
No.
But I'll send you. I have it up on
Okay.
YouTube. But anyhow, we were in the Collingwood Arts Center, which is very haunted here in Toledo, and this square anomaly, I'll call it, just appeared and then went out of the room. And there was other occasions where lights would come down and touch her and then go away. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe that was a bug, but I made sure, because I'm huge about orbs. I know how the camera works. I know that cell phones are the worst because the flash is right next to the lens, and the lens, how it even like lines on it on a cell phone, the shutter is mechanical and it runs from the top to the bottom, not like a regular camera where the shutter goes like that, you know.
Oh,
It
yeah.
actually goes top to bottom, and that's why you'll get like lines and stuff. But in this video, I want to call them light anomalies because they're just weird. I didn't see it in the light beam, and there was one occasion where I'm panning the room, and you can see a light anomaly go into Jen, and right away she's like, "Oh, I just got cold." So, you know, I don't know. But I'm big about orbs because I know how cameras work. 90% of the time when you see a picture and it has an orb in it, unless it is a in focus, sharp color, or that, I call it dust. Now, a lot of people don't, but I call it dust because I know how cameras work.
My experience with orbs, I'll just share this story quickly. When my sister and I went to Gettysburg, we were out on the battlefield at night, which we didn't know at the time, but you're not supposed to be on the battlefield. It's like a felony if you get caught on the battlefield at night.
Is that how you
we're
visited?
out there just walking around like, oh,
Was that another prison experience after that?
No.
Okay.
But we were seeing blue orbs on the battlefield.
Like
we were
seeing,
hearing,
like visually. with your eyes.
visually. Yeah, we weren't taking pictures. I do have a picture of one somewhere. I think it's in my old camera. But it was blue orbs, and it was the most weirdest thing because we were like, "Are you seeing that?" We both were like seeing it, but didn't say anything to each other. And then we heard horses whinnying. We heard drums, like battle drums, out there, and it was like that was like probably the most
Wow.
hard evidence that I have with orbs.
I mean, to be able to like see it with your eyes, hear it with your ears, not because a lot of times you capture it through an electronic device, because I guess that's an easier way. It facilitates things for spirits. I'm guessing they're able to connect to something with energy rather than us visually hearing, seeing, hearing, and all those other things. That's amazing. And for the people who don't know, Gettysburg, that place has like how many people buried, right?
Oh,
tens of thousands. And what's so interesting is, like, I always say when I'm talking about Gettysburg, yes, it's one of the most haunted locations in the United States, but when you physically drive into that town, you feel the history, not just the paranormal, the history. It's almost like it could. I don't know. I always say I could physically feel the history when you pull into that town. It's so unique, and I haven't had that feeling anywhere else. And we've been around the United States, different locations, but there's nothing like Gettysburg at all.
If you think about it, right, you feel all the love. These people who died there, of course, nobody wants to pass away for whatever reason. We just don't. But all these people who did pass away, they passed away loving. I would guess loving what they do, because these guys went out and put their life on the line, knowing what they were getting into. So there must be a lot of love floating around there.
Yeah.
And it was a lot, majority of it was very young men.
Yeah.
children almost. They were 15, 16 years old,
Wow.
walking, thousands of miles from their home to go fight this battle, and perishing. So you have a lot of emotion of, like, missing their parents,
Wow.
missing their mothers, loved ones or whatever. So, when I go in that town, I always feel like really just sad, really sad.
Mhm.
Just like homesick feeling,
Wow.
I guess it is. And I did have a one experience. My sister and I were driving through the battlefield. Now, if anybody's been there, there's like a 4-mile stretch of road that goes right through the battlefield. Now, there's nothing on this road other than battlefield on both sides. So there's no houses, there's no businesses, there's barely any street lights, and it's a 2-lane highway. So if anybody's coming the other direction, you're going to see them. And so we stopped. I said, stop the car. I want to take a picture out in the battlefield. So they have like these big split rail fences that go along the side. So we pull the rental car over, and I go out, and because I'm short, I had to bend down to go under one of the rails to take the picture. And I hear a young man's voice in my ear, clear as day. He goes, "What are you doing?" I turned around, there was nobody there. I ran so fast back to that car. I was like, I don't even remember. But it was a young, like, inquisitive male's voice. Like, he didn't understand, what I was doing.
Like, what are you doing here? Like, they're in the middle of war right now. What are you doing here?
Exactly. And it was like, just, I'll never forget that moment. That place is just, it's magical, I guess you would say.
Did Daniel tell you guys anything about you guys having some kind of? Because I mean, I think to be able to see things, you have to be open to something. So
yeah.
I'm just wondering, did he mention anything to you guys about you guys having some sort of ability or something that you haven't discovered? Or
Well, an interesting thing he told us was like who my spirit guides were. So the names of my spirit guides. So like, everybody has spirit attach them as your guides. Not necessarily, they're not guardian angels, they're spirit guides. So mine were named Marie and John. I have 2. They're not related, they're not relatives, but that was really fascinating because I always thought it was probably somebody in my family, a grandparent or an aunt or uncle who had passed, or maybe one of my cousins close to me. But that fascinated me, that my spirit guides are not related, but I think the word he used, maybe Daniel can tell me if I'm using this incorrectly, but they were basically assigned to us, to me, my spirit guide. So that was something really interesting that I just wasn't aware that, we are assigned spirit guides to help us, and you can call upon them, like, to help you for different things. And I'm always saying, please send me the winning lottery numbers. Doesn't work. I win a little bit at bingo, but
the lottery numbers, you get $1 or $2. There you go. That's enough. I think
we're
more. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, my spirit guides just sit there and go, he's boring. Does not do anything.
Yeah, I think my spirit guides are like Garfield and. So, guys, there's a comment. This is an old comment I hadn't reached out to earlier, and maybe you can explain to me what this means. This last word here, I can't read it. I've never seen
poltergeist. I think they're trying to spell poltergeist.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, ever come across anything other than spirits like poltergeist?
I want to say I've never experienced poltergeist, except I have had a wall pushed over on me. And when I say wall, I'm talking like one of those 4-foot divider walls that you see in offices.
Wow.
It was at the Collingwood Art Center, at the same location that we got that video from. And we were down in the basement by what we call the death room. And the death room is where, when it was a convent, and if the nuns would pass away during the winter, they would put the bodies in this room until summer came and they could actually dig the ground up and bury the nuns.
Whoa. Like a morgue.
Yeah. And it was just a little room off to the side that was probably, they had to put a wall up to brace the floor above or something, you know. So it was just a little nook type room. And I was standing there, and I could feel this wall or divider pushing against me. And I was there with a DJ from Toledo here, and he's kind of a big guy and he's got bad knees and that. So I was thinking it was him. So this wall keeps pushing me, and finally it pushed me over. And I look back, and I'm like, Grizz, are you okay? And he was standing there. He was like, I'm not even close to you. That wall just went over. And so that's the only poltergeist activity I've ever seen or felt that I guess I call poltergeist activity. And it was confirmed because there was another team in town here called the Toledo, Ohio Ghost Hunter Society. And they were downstairs, and the exact same thing happened to them. And one of the guys in his team actually, we think, was a little bit, got an attachment because he got really mad and he was very vulgar, and it's just not like him. He never cusses.
Oh, wow.
But he got really upset. And they're like, yeah, and a wall got pushed over on us. And I'm like, wait a minute, that happened to me too.
Oh,
So,
wow.
really, that's the only poltergeist type of activity I've ever experienced.
We had one really, and we don't know what it was. We can't explain it. Thing happened. So we were investigating this. It's this. What's the word for it? This old house. So it was built in the 1800s. It's an old, like, clapboard type house. They call it the Bone House.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out what you're talking about.
So the reason they call it the Bone House is because this guy bought
Love
this
the Bone
house. He bought this, like, it's just a really old, like, house. Buys it, starts to renovate it because he's going to flip it, right? So he buys this house. He starts pulling up the floorboards. He starts pulling the boards off of, like, the walls, and bones are raining out of the walls. Every inch of this house is filled with bones. So we call it the Bone House. We were in the attic and we were investigating because there was so much activity around this house. The guy who bought it was acting totally not himself. He would get up in the middle of the night and go dig up the floorboards at this place.
Wow.
They had seen, figures in the house. They had all kinds of activity happen around it. Joe, I, and like 5 other people are at this house. We're in the attic where they found like talismans in there. This house was, for the backstory, it was used, there was a santeria had gone on in this house for nearly 100 years, from the late 1800s up until maybe the 70s or 80s.
So
I think more like 90,
generations.
yeah.
Of,
We're in there, and it's super hot. It's like 95 degrees. We're all sweltering. We're in this dusty attic. And I make this comment. I'm like, it's surprised, like, we never see a bat in this place, because, like, you're in this old, abandoned house. No sooner I say this giant white bat
wow.
comes out and swoops at all of us.
Mhm.
We all at the same time duck. We're like, what the hell is that? There are no, okay, first of all, a white bat. It is huge. There's no white bats in Ohio. We have little bats that fly around, right? This thing was like, I'll turn it. It was like,
Oh,
Like
wait,
2
it was
foot.
like a huge
it was
bat.
huge. It was giant and just disappeared. And we're like, what in the world was that? It wasn't a ghost, but we all experienced it at the same time.
Mhm.
We all visually saw it.
It was a physical. I'm sure at that point it was physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
everybody saw it.
and it was a bat. It wasn't a dove.
Right.
It wasn't a seagull. Nothing. I mean, it was clear as day,
Yeah.
and
And it just
freaked us
disappeared.
all out.
Yeah. So, like, was that an elemental versus a a ghost.
I mean, my real question is, did you see it coming before it was coming? Because you said, I'm surprised we haven't seen a bat, and then it shows up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
just
it's
that
like,
quick.
It's almost like, oh shoot, I shouldn't open my mouth because then all of a
like, don't
sudden,
challenge me.
right?
Don't challenge me.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, that house was amazing.
Oh my
I
god.
mean, you're telling
Okay,
me. Yeah,
you
go
know
ahead.
the K2 meters? Have you ever
K2
used a K2
meters.
meter?
No.
It's the meter that has the lights on it, and it picks up electronic,
Okay.
Electromagnetic.
like
It goes like green to red or something like that.
Yeah.
the house has no power, no electricity, no water,
No
anything,
gas.
no gas, nothing. Okay, it's basically a shell at this point. You could take that K2 meter and stand on the porch, and it would be just on your power on green light. Physically hold it in the door, and it goes to red.
Wow.
And would not, it didn't blink. It's just either completely off or completely on. So the K2 was totally useless in that place. REM pods were totally useless. Anything that are proximity detectors or electromagnetic detectors. I know I keep hearing it somewhere over there. But
stuff's happening.
yeah, I just
Oh
I
wait, you
keep
guys
hearing-
have something going on in the back.
I keep hearing a squeak over here too.
Yeah.
But the Bone House was unbelievable. To me, it was one of the most haunted. Besides St. Joseph's Hospital, it was one of the most haunted places we've ever been in.
But then again, this house had been used for like santeria for
Mm-hmm.
centuries, like generations.
Almost 100 years.
And it's not in the best of neighborhoods. I know I don't know if Jem, were you there the first night?
The first night our friends investigated there, they were getting ready to go in the house, and this guy ran up. He was being chased by another guy, and the guy shot him right in front of everybody, right on the corner in front of this house. So it's almost like it has always attracted something negative.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And the guy that lived there or owned the house, he would, like Jen said, would wake up in the middle of the night, not even dress. He would just stand up, walk out to the car, drive there, dig under the floorboards. So when you go to the house now, it's actually up for sale, but it even though they redid the outside, it's a total tear down because it's so bad. But he would go and take the floorboards up and then start digging under the house, and we don't know why.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like
He's better now,
But he was doing
Yeah.
stuff kind of like that movie, like what was it called? I think it was, I can't remember the name of the movie, but the guy would wake up and do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, wow, it's crazy, man. There's a house similar to what you're talking about. I live in a border town, so Mexico is literally the next town across, like 15-minute drive. I haven't been there in about 25 years because of all the violence. But there's a house there. They call it the narco santeria, like narcos
Okay.
santeria house. And this house was a house where this guy was I think he was out of Florida, and he became intrigued by the paranormal, all this kind of mystic science stuff, and he got into some kind of a black magic. I can't remember the name of that black magic that is like from Haiti or somewhere over there.
Voodoo or hoodoo.
Some kumbaya. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kumbaya. A whole. And man, you
I'm
guys are
sorry.
picking something up there, huh?
Yeah, something's knocking behind us.
And this guy, he started. Well, he ended up going to Mexico, and he had become like a model guy. So he was a good-looking guy, and he would do these readings on people. And he found out, especially the people who were the narcos, they'd be paying the big bucks to, hey, protect me, hey, do this for me, do that. So he began a cult. This is, like I said, 15 minutes away from here. And so the whole entire reason why they figured this guy out was because some spring breaker came down from, I don't know where, down here, disappeared. They started investigating. They pulled over a vehicle in Mexico. The guy started snitching, saying everything. Oh, I'll take you to the body of this. I know. And no, the cops didn't even pull him over for that. They pulled him over for like speeding or something. And they're like, well, let's go. Let's go. So they go to that ranch. They pull up like 12, 13 bodies that they
Oh my
used for
gosh.
santeria. They said, we walked into like a barn. There was a huge, nasty stench. There was like boiled, they were stewing people to take the bones out and build things, like stuff like that. And that house, it stands there, and there's like like tunnels in the attic
Mhm.
that are used for who knows what.
Mhm.
So it's one of those kind of houses that you're talking about. It's horrific.
And
It's interesting because this kind of all ties together. So I went with one of my friends who she's a really fearless investigator. I mean, she's done exorcism. She's gone really, to the really extremes with some of the things that she helps people with. So she asked me to go to this case with her where it was a young brother and sister who had fled here from Mexico because the father was a priest, a santeria priest, and it's expected that the son would follow the steps of the father.
Uh-huh.
Well, he didn't want to do that, so they came here and they were having all kinds of problems in their apartment, and they were saying that he was, um, putting curses on them or sending entities to get them because they basically, ran away. And we go into this apartment and we start to investigate and saw a couple shadows, but I was like, really, not really feeling anything. I think it's just these, kids maybe over, having an overactive imagination or something like that. So um, we're there for about an hour and we go outside because my friend, she wants to take a smoke break, right? And she, before we had gone out, she was telling the spirits, come scratch me, whatever, trying to provoke them a little bit. We go outside and she goes to light a cigarette and she's like, oh, my back's burned, my back's burned. I pull her shirt up. She had
Wow.
3 huge scratches down
Wow.
the back. Now, it's not like her finger, like they were so far apart that there's no way that you could have made those. And I was with her the whole time. But it was crazy. I was like, okay, now I'm thinking there's something to this.
Wow, that's
Seeing that.
crazy how you mentioned the dad was like a dark priest, basically,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And I was hearing a story of also in Mexico. This guy, I would have to say, because I don't, growing up, I never knew who this guy was, but apparently he was like the equivalent of a Teletubby
Mm-hmm.
character, in
Yeah.
Mexico.
Uh,
And he said he started going into the dark, and there was like a cult, and one of like the initiation kind of things they were doing was his first initiation was getting buried alive and only had like a basically a pipe to breathe through. So you're buried underground for, of course, not 6 feet, maybe 2, 3 feet,
mm-hmm.
and just a pipe going out of the dirt to breathe. And well, he went through all that, and the whole reason he came out with this was to say of how many celebrities are stepping into this kind of life just to get by, to get a little further. And the
Okay.
whole dark priest thing, that's, he talked about a dark priest, and he talked about that a lot of the churches out in Mexico, how they do like Ash Wednesdays in the
Mm-hmm.
Catholic, that a lot of those ashes were actually human ashes that were being
oh,
used
jeez.
Oh my
without them
gosh.
knowing. And
Yeah.
that
Wow.
camera is blurring
Oh,
out, kind of like Daniel's did last time. Um, and so they would, they go to church, they think that it's a great Ash Wednesday, and they're using
Uh-huh.
human ashes.
Oh my
So
gosh.
crazy.
yeah.
That's
And I know that when the coroners came out, because for the bone house, the
Mhm.
news ended up showing up, and the police actually came in, and they told everybody to get out of the house. The coroner came in, took some bones, and there were some big bones that they found.
mm-hmm.
But the coroner did say that it all was canine.
Oh
But
wow.
I
who
don't know. I
knows,
don't believe that.
And I do know we were up there one time, and the owner's like, pull up a board, just pull up any board. There's bones under every board.
Wow.
So I reached out, I pulled up a board, and I found a little carved head. And I'll send that to you too. I'll write that down. I'll send that to you too. But
Wow.
I found a little carved head made out of bone. And I'm like,
There's a
holy
face
crap.
on
So I
it.
took a
Yeah.
picture of it and I put it back, But
Yeah.
every board.
Yeah.
So
just
that's
pull
why
it
this
out.
guy was pulling up boards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was. They literally would pull a board off the wall and bones would fall out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they found, it's interesting too, because they found letters stuffed in the wall in what they called Old Spanish, or like a not modern
More like
writing.
a Latin or
Yeah,
something.
so like they had it translated, and it was like this man was writing love letters to this girl who it was unrequited love. She did love him, and they found um, things wrapped up in corn husks, like underwear and locks of hair and different things.
The
They
whole
found,
love spells.
yeah,
Yeah.
they found drawings of peacocks and a woman on the wall. And when we were there one time, there we have video. I gotta find this video. I think Sarah has it, but we have a shadow walking behind us, and then that we saw a woman kneeling up against a wall.
Hmm.
She was like almost like in a prayer stance, but she was kneeling up against the wall, and you could just like see her there. It's crazy,
Wow.
and it's like, you never know. Like, everybody thinks that every old building is haunted, and I'm of the theory of like, yeah, it could be. And then you get in a place like this, and you're like, yeah, definitely something's going on, because when we were before we had gone to investigate, our friends had come over because we were like, come on the podcast, let's do a podcast about it. And my friend walks in and he hands me this bag, and I didn't know what it was, and I grabbed the bag, and all of a sudden, like a jolt went through my body.
Wow.
I threw the bag. It was a bag of the bones.
From the
Holy
house.
cow.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I just grabbed it, like, oh, okay, what's this? I thought he was bringing me some snacks or something, And I was like, it was like,
But you
the
physically just felt
energy.
like, oh, like a shock.
yeah. Oh my God, it was crazy. It was crazy. I love
Wow.
it. It was
And
crazy.
that's beyond haunted. That's
Mhm.
like, what would you call it? Like invoked, like
I don't know.
the
Infested, I guess.
crazy.
But
So,
it's interesting because like in the area that you live with all of that's going on, you would think there would be just a ton of paranormal activity going on. Like,
well, I'm sure, like where I live, I mean, it's historical because it was a lot of the Mexican American War was fought here.
mhm.
So everything you said about like the drums and horses, uh, everybody hears that at the college here because the college was a fort before. There was a
Okay.
morgue and everything there, and
Mhm.
uh, teachers have or professors have reported looking out the window in the morning and seeing the full lineup of the soldiers as they used to
Oh
do
my
before, like
gosh.
horses and
Wow.
everything. So
That's
crazy.
amazing.
So Stephanie says, when I was a child, my mom saw fire coming from the ground and then just disappeared. When she
Mhm.
went to check it out, nothing seemed burned or any sign of fire. Have you ever heard of anything like this? In the in
I,
the in the Hispanic folklore, it's like they'll say, well, you dig there and there's treasure, but
mhm.
if it's a person with greed, you'll dig and they'll be cold. Again, this is like folklore.
Okay.
A person who's not greedy can go. That fire will keep showing until somebody digs it out, and if it's a greedy person, well, it's gonna be cold. But again,
Hmm.
folklore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I haven't either. Yeah.
and Daniel responding, yes, assigned, but they are related in another way because we're all brothers and sisters
Yep.
of the soul family.
Oh,
The Soul
okay.
Family, yeah.
All right. That's cool.
Fausto says, have you ever used Ouija boards to communicate with spirits, whether you
No.
or anybody you know?
I mean, a lot of people use them.
Yeah.
We personally haven't used
I've never
them.
used one, no.
I did when I was a teenager one time, and it scared me, so I never used it again. But it's like it's there's two theories. One, it's just another tool to communicate because you're using a spirit box to communicate. You're using
Oh,
a
I see.
recorder. You're using a board. But then other people would say that particular type of board, or just using the Ouija board opens a portal,
Mhm.
and not everybody closes it. So, the demons or darker entities are able to kind of
Sneak in.
come
Yeah,
through.
sneak,
Yes,
yeah.
basically sneak out because people are using that type of communication. But we've had people have had great experiences with it, and we've had people that have had awful,
Mhm.
scary
And-
things happen. So it's like I think it's the intent. Maybe it's
Mhm.
just what you intent. You
I mean, I
what you're
just can't
looking
believe.
for. You might get what you're looking for, basically.
I mean, you used to be able to go to Toys R Us and
Yeah.
buy a good,
Mhm.
buy a Ouija board.
You
You'll
know,
see the commercials. Am I moving it? No, you're moving it.
and
So that's
talking
kind of
boards have been around for thousands of years,
Yeah.
in some form. So maybe it's just that the spirits are used to that. They're not used to our modern stuff. I don't know. And it's just maybe an easier way to communicate through that talking board. But I have seen a lot of different things happen through them, but nothing personally.
I see. Daniel prefers Monopoly boards. Great.
Park Place.
Well, fellas, I mean, it's been an awesome time.
Yes,
I
thank
thought
you
we'd be
so
on here for an
much.
hour, but I mean, it's an hour and 40 minutes later, and being able to meet somebody and kick off a conversation is a hard thing to do. And every time I'm able to just kick off something so natural, it feels so great.
Yeah. Yeah, I really
Uh,
appreciate you
like
having us on.
Yeah.
definitely like before all communications like on camera, these kind of things, it was almost impossible to meet other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you would just meet your locals, and that's it. So it's so awesome
Yeah.
that I'm able to meet you. Not only me, right? The people who are watching us. It's great for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for
Um,
having us on. I loved it.
Yeah, it was really
it's
fun.
been an honor to me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Daniel, too, for all the comments and everybody who commented.
Yeah. If anybody
Right.
wants to talk to an awesome medium, do we call it Daniel? Do I call you spirit medium again? I never get it right. But if anybody wants to talk to a good spirit medium, Daniel's it. And
Yeah, I'm gonna
he's
have to bring
awesome.
Daniel back on soon. Daniel, if you have some time soon, let me know. I know you're moving to
Mhm.
Arizona, like maybe already, but last time I'm telling you that there was people commenting and we were not able to pull them up, so that kind of was like boo. But fellas, look, I like to end the show with I never had two people on. This is awesome. It's great.
Thank you.
Brother and sister. That's just being able to have a brother and sister in synchrony that are still friends or still
Yeah, that's
being able to
fair.
talk to each other is awesome. I like to end the show, with everybody saying, and I have to put it like this: if today was the end of your life and you were gonna not wake up tomorrow morning, and you have an opportunity to say something to the world, what would it be? Because this is gonna be recorded forever now. And somebody might be able to one day say, "Whoa, this is a message they had for the world." And we'll start with ladies first. One message that you have to put out.
Believe in yourself. Life is short, and go for it.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Treat people right. Be happy. Unless you you can't be happy unless you treat people the right way. Leave a lasting memory for someone in a good way. In a good way.
Awesome. Again, we're gonna go ahead and go backstage now. Everybody who tuned in, thank you so much. We're about to end it.